We expect.
I would support it by the evidence of so many religions.
Okay,
If there is not many religions in the world, or if there's one religion, then I would have a strong chance of believing it. But because there's so many religions and so many different gods, I guess probably more than 5,000 gods.
Let's take this a bit rationally, right? If there are more than one God, we can take two to begin with and see what we expect. The concept of God that we have is...
We are first assuming some gods or a god exists. Then we are coming.
It's not
into this
assuming.
discussion.
This is the conclusion that we arrive at.
We haven't arrived at a conclusion that whether a god exists or not.
So, do you believe?
But we can look into it first.
Okay.
You can establish that first, and then we can
Fair
come
enough.
back to
Fair enough.
that.
Right. So, to understand the concept of more than one gods and how rational it is,
Rational would be a thing that is.
it needs to make sense to you.
Your or my rationality.
It needs to make
and
sense
not,
to both of us.
Not in a rationality of a higher being, right?
It needs to make sense to us, right? Agreed?
Yeah.
It needs to make sense to us. Okay. The concept of God or the creator is such that the God is the creator of all this cosmos.
I have a question over here in the beginning. If there's a God or multiple gods exist, does they have to make sense to us rationally?
Everything needs to make sense to us in some degree or another.
According to our rationality, does a God needs to make sense?
Anything in our life, to some degree or another, it has to make sense to us. Otherwise, you might be saying, look, am I awake or not?
It's not.
Are you awake?
No, this is not. I'm not going on that side. I'm just asking a simple question. Like, you're trying to establish about one God or multiple gods.
Yes.
But before we do that, you put a condition that it has to come into our rationality, right?
No, it needs to make sense.
It needs to make sense. It has to be rational, which means according to our rationality, right? So is it a condition? Is it a condition that a God has to satisfy?
It's not God satisfying. It's in our discussion.
But then,
If we are discussing about an external entity outside of ourselves, you and me, right? Whether this is tree.
so if let's say that entity, whichever we are trying to explain, if he's in another dimension or he has different powers or ways of working that we don't know, you and I don't know, it might seem unrational to us, right?
But there are
It
some
might be
elements.
the way the God works, right?
But there are some elements that you will have to conclude based on the reality that you see. Yeah.
That is fine, but we cannot then put this condition that God has to satisfy rationality or multiple God has.
No. Not God satisfying rationality. We are using our brains to conclude.
So, let's
And
agree on that.
our speculations
why
from
don't
this
Why don't we go
thinking,
step
our speculations of what we think God should be or God is going to be will be confirmed by revelation or guidance or messages directly from this God.
The revelations is going to come much later.
Yeah, I say confirmation comes afterwards.
So let's. Do you think is it reasonable to agree that the only way to decide between good and bad, or right religion and wrong religion, or if there's a religion or not, is our rationality and our five senses? Or do we have another thing apart from that?
Let's understand something.
As a
How
human-
many
as
senses
human,
do we
I'm
have?
asking this.
Okay, for us to understand something, conclude something, what are the tools that we have?
I have sense of touch, sense of hearing, seeing, smelling.
Yeah, the five senses.
Smelling, five senses.
Anything
and,
else?
And a brain to make sense of those.
Sure.
Interpret those signals.
That's all I'm asking. In this discussion, use those to arrive at a sound
Not in just
conclusion.
this discussion. Let's in all aspects of
Of
our
course,
life.
of course.
Because
But
these
in
are the
this
only
discussion-
tools we have, right?
Exactly.
So if I 100% agree that these are only tools we have nothing else. So if these tools lead us on a path that is not right, technically that wouldn't be our fault because these are the only tools we have. Right? Okay, let's go on.
Sure. So, talking about the concept of multiple creators. If we are believing in a concept or we're thinking there is a concept of...
We're jumping.
Let's not jump then.
We're jumping
Do you
the
accept that you exist?
point. Accept that I am.
Sure. You are something and I'm something?
We are human beings.
Right.
Exactly, and he's a human
Right.
being. All of us are human beings.
Could there be a time in the past where there was absolute nothingness?
It could be. It could be.
Okay.
We don't know.
Okay, let me explain to you what I mean by absolute nothingness. Absolute nothingness is the absence of everything. So there is no something, there are no senses, there is nothing within this nothingness. No energy,
But this is
no consciousness.
this is nothing you are defining, right?
I'm explaining to you.
This is nothing you are defining.
Yeah.
It could be your opinion.
Do you agree with that?
It could be a scientist's opinion.
Sure. Do you agree with my definitions?
What I'm saying, because you see, if you make a claim, I don't have to agree with it straight away. I have to look into it. I have
Look
to
into
see
it?
how the
So
things
now I'm
are.
asking you, the nothingness that I'm describing,
But the point I'm trying to explain over here is you must also take it just as an opinion and not a conclusive proof of something. It could be a different nothing. It could be a nothing.
the
a
nothing that I'm
possibility.
postulating to you in this discussion is this. It is the absence of everything.
So if this nothing does not exist, but another nothing exists, where there's, let's say maybe
No. It's not about another nothing. Define what is another nothing.
it could be 1,000 many nothings. We
Such
don't
as,
know.
define
Okay,
each of your nothings.
Let's say there's a nothing where there's space,
That's not nothing.
no time.
That's not nothing. That's something.
It could be something. It could be nothing.
That's not nothing.
You see,
No. Straight away I will disagree with you. That's something. It's not nothing.
there is no such thing as absolute nothing.
So the concept you understand, right?
To the concept that I understand,
Good. So that's what I'm saying. There's an absolute nothingness which cannot really exist. Is the absence of something and everything.
not everything. How would you say everything?
That nothing which doesn't exist is the absence of everything. It doesn't have anything at all.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. So that nothing you understood.
But it has still something in it.
No.
That nothing
What-
still
what-
has something in
what-
it.
what does it
has
have?
quantum reality.
No, that's something. That's not nothing.
But this is how it does.
No, I'm telling you about a concept which I am asking you to consider. Not what you're trying to put forward an argument to then you know.
Let's go about it. You see, there's one nothing that you presented. That's one nothing. That I
But your
presented.
nothing, I disagree, it's something.
That is
So
fine.
deal with my nothing.
That is fine. You have the right to disagree. But what I'm trying to say over here is,
Are you going to deal with my nothing?
yeah, okay, whatever that nothing that you say.
Yes. Did you understand what my concept of
You
nothingness
say
is?
there's absolute nothing over
Good.
here, not even space, not even time,
Right.
not even quantum particles.
Sure.
Okay.
So-
let's say if there's a nothing like
Right.
yours exists.
From this nothing, can you get something?
If that nothing exists, maybe not. I don't know. This is the whole point. I don't know.
If that nothing has nothing in it, has no energy, no power, no quantum fluctuations, no hadrons, no gluons, no leptons. We're talking about absence of everything. It cannot produce anything.
Okay. You see, what you're saying now is based on your rationality, on the observations that you have seen, right? Or are you coming from a different universe?
Are you now trying to?
Are you coming from a different
No,
universe?
hang on. Are you not trying to engage with the discussion?
I am trying to
Right.
engage with the
So this,
discussion.
look, the nothing that I've tried to make you conceptualize is a nothing by definition cannot make something.
Okay, the nothing that you're trying to define,
Not trying. I've already defined it.
but the nothing that you have defined, we don't know nothing about that nothing, right?
I just gave you what this nothing in my example is.
It could be or it could not be.
It's not about could be. I'm saying if we have a concept like this, clearly something like you and me cannot originate from that nothingness.
How would you know? This is the point.
How would I know? I just told you. Because that nothing, as I've defined,
You are
cannot
putting-
produce anything.
How would you know? That's the whole point. Until you have some equation, some proof of it. That look, this nothing.
I've given
can
you
be
the
known.
proof.
How is it?
Okay. What do the rocks dream of? Do they dream of something?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You don't
But
think
I don't
so?
know for sure.
So you know for,
That's the whole
okay.
point.
Do you know for sure anything?
I know for sure that I exist.
Are you sure about that?
I know for sure this whole world
Are you
exists
sure about that? How are you sure?
through my senses.
Senses. But you could be a brain in a jar, having this.
Could be. Could be.
So you're not sure then? When you say could be, then you're not sure. So are you sure about anything?
Yes, I said my existence.
No. You could be a brain in a jar, or alternatively, a computer simulation. You think you're actually speaking to me in Speaker's Corner.
Well, that's the whole point. That the only.
How can you be sure?
Okay, I'm telling you now. That only way I can be sure is through what I experience, right? Through my senses. Through
So
my
you didn't
brain.
understand my argument.
I understood. Now let me proceed with it. Now, when through these senses, when I'm trying to make the sense of the whole world, I'm presented with our religion and another religion and another religion, right? Which have their own concept of nothingness, right? You have a concept of nothingness according to your religion where there was nothing. Maybe a Hindu has a concept of nothingness where there is Krishna and he came into being and he created everything, and there's another concept and then there's another concept. So there is not just one nothing. There could be many nothings where many gods could come in and create the universe, right? What my concern is, based on my senses, on rationality, what concept of this universe that I can make, which is good for me and for the whole universe, for the people living around me, for the universe. Not something that is just a philosophical child of somebody's mind and not good for anything in the whole world. You understand? If we go by what you are trying to do, we have seen this happen in Middle East, in Islamic world. These philosophical discussions going on throughout the history, not producing any fruitful results. But when we turn to science over here, you understand?
Okay.
Through this concept that let's only go by what rationale tells us.
Okay, I understand your
and
point.
try to make concept. If we go through this process, we can have evidence that could be tested in India or in Afghanistan.
Just clarify one thing.
Yeah.
Are you dreaming now or awake? How do you know?
So as I said, through my senses.
Okay, I'll tell you. Have you ever had a dream? In your dream, did you really think that you are there having that experience through your senses? Were you really having the experience that you were in a beach in Hawaii or whatever, but you weren't there physically, were you?
Exactly.
So you did not physically experience any of these things. But in your dream, you were what? Deceived.
Okay.
No.
That's
The
all
question.
right.
No, the question is about reality. Now you said you are sure about the reality. In your dream, you felt real, but it wasn't real.
Okay. Now,
So how are you sure that you're not dreaming right now?
okay, this is my whole point, sir. This is what I'm trying to explain to you over here. Whatever happened in the dream is not going to help me anyway.
No, that's not the point. The point is about how do we establish the reality? Because you said, our experiences. So when I gave you an example of nothingness, for some reason, I know you're an intelligent man, you realize that nothingness cannot make something like you. So you are not willing to engage with that nothingness. And instead you're putting forward. You are
trying to ask me a question about something that you've just explained to me, that I don't know whether it exists the way you are trying to explain to me. And then
you a question.
And then you're trying to put like properties to that universe or that nothingness, which we have no proof of, which you just think thought of.
When
When
you say proof, do you have proof of anything?
Evidence.
No. Evidence of anything. No. I challenge you to bring forward proof of anything for anything in this reality. Okay, now hang on. This chain, what's it made of?
Silver.
What's your proof that it's silver?
It's silver because through its atoms.
No, what's the proof it's silver? Have you seen silver atoms?
I've read about it, I've
You've
studied
read
it,
about it, that's
and I
not
have
proof.
the properties.
Wait,
I know the properties of silver. Silver is a metal.
Wait, you do not. Have you seen the atoms of silver?
I don't have to see it.
So that particular chain.
You can call it gold.
No.
You can call gold silver. It does not matter. The name does not
matter. I want
matter.
to show to you the level of evidence that you operate with.
Okay.
That particular piece of chain
Okay.
made of silver, you have not put under a chemical test to determine it's silver, have you? You've taken testimonies of other people.
Seller's word for it.
Testimonies of other people. And that counted as an evidence to you. It wasn't your experience. Do you see where we're going now? It wasn't your experience that determined the conclusion of your accepting something. Simply testimony of others led you to accept, that's fine. If I told you, I accept the testimony of people, trustworthy people, all the way going back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he received revelation from God, that we are created for a purpose and the Quran is a revelation, you would have no quarrel with me using the same standard that you're using of testimony. I don't have to experience directly seeing God. Do you agree or disagree?
Let me see. Now this chain, the person I've bought it from, he said silver. Yeah?
Testimony.
His testimony. What I did, I came back, I tested it.
Tested it with what?
I wore it on. I wore it on. Maybe this is But there's many questions that we know that
The reason we're trying to answer them because there is answers to them.
No.
potential answers
No.
that you
This
don't
is the
know.
whole point.
We don't know them yet,
No,
and
no,
we
no,
will
no.
discover them.
We say there might not be an answer to this. There may be no answer
No.
to this, but
We may
searching.
never know the answer to it, but there probably is still an answer.
Could be.
But we may never know. That's a different point.
If there was no
with-
answer to a question, it's not a question.
Yeah.
How would you say that? Why would you say that?
Okay.
Why would you even say that?
Today is Sunday. What question have I asked?
This is just one question.
No. What question have I asked? Today is Sunday.
You just made a statement. You didn't ask a question.
I've asked you a question. Please answer. Today is Sunday.
This is a statement. It's not an answer.
That's the point.
Now, I have asked you a question. Today is Sunday. Now, can you answer that, please?
Yes, it's a Sunday. You're right.
I'm just saying today is Sunday. What question have I asked?
I said you're right. I agreed with you. Even if you asked a question, I
What-
agreed with you.
and what is
if
the-
you didn't ask a question,
what is my
Rhetorical.
question? What is my question? I haven't asked a question, have I?
but I've asked you whether you asked a question.
Sorry,
you
dude.
yes,
It's
or
because it's
no
not going to reach
question.
his voice. That's why, brother.
Oh, sorry. What question have I asked?
You said yourself. You said yourself. I asked you. It's not a question. You made a statement.
So now you
I said-
realize the distinction between statements and questions.
I told you when you asked the question for the
Right.
first time. I said it's a statement,
Good.
sir.
So when we say there are absolute beings, because if something exists now, there has to be the existence of an absolute entity always. That's a given thing. You can't really question it.
Why not? Why can't
Okay.
you question?
Now, let's take it all the way. If something exists now, two options.
What's your name? brother?
Mansur, Najibullah, Mansur.
Listen, let me. Circles. It's going to be circles. Let's stick to one point and try
That's
to
the one
explain,
point
yeah?
we're trying to achieve.
So my standard of truth, as you said, is by testimony. Then I was trying to explain to you, look, it's not just testimony. It might be testimony in this minute matter of my life, but when it comes to judging the world, I go by logic, I go by scientific method, I go by evidence.
Fine.
I
I have
pay
no
much-
problem with any of that.
I pay much more attention to it.
Good. That's what we're trying to do.
So
in
then
this discussion.
it's not just the testimony. of
Absolutely
somebody.
not. I didn't say it is. I'm simply saying, if you bring forward just saying, oh, it's my five senses, the tools that I have, and then I brought this example for change that it wasn't your five senses, it was something else. It was the testimony that you accepted without any kind of experimentation of any kind.
When I was telling you about my
So we've
senses, I was
cleared that up. So we have cleared
So
it.
we're going to underpin the point you're trying to make. Are you trying to argue that God's existence can be rationally justified?
Yes.
Completely rational.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can any other
There are other
viewpoints
methods.
be rationally justified? Can any other viewpoints, for example, a non-existent of God, be rationally justified?
You can try. That's what
it's a
I'm.
question.
That's what I'm trying to do. Saying if something exists now, there has to be always something. So if there was no God, then you have to now come with an explanation about the reality, that the reality can exist without having any prior something. That means you have a concept where there's nothing, and this nothing produces something. So it wasn't nothing in the first place then, because if nothing produces something, that was something, because it has to have something to produce it.
Okay,
If you have a concept of nothing,
this is
like
an-
say God nothing,
It's the argument of design.
it's a multifaceted. If you have a God, let's call this God nothing, right? This God has no power, no consciousness, no will. Can this God make anything?
Yeah.
No energy.
Why not? No, if the God has no energy,
Yeah.
how would he exist?
So
How would he exist?
Good. That's the sake of argument. Let's say this God exists with nothing,
But
right?
then he cannot exist.
Good. So now you realize if you have such a concept of nothingness, this universe could not be the result of such nothingness. That means there is a higher existence who brought this reality in place.
Now-
And that is what I'm
now
saying
let me try
is
to-
your proof for
Say
existence of
The
God.
classic argument of the argument of design is if someone created this earth, who created the creator?
There's no point.
It's
This
easy
is-
to
this is
answer.
an existential question.
Okay. The question is not about anything that begins to exist requires a cause, or anything that is complex requires a cause. What is it? Because people misunderstand this Kalam cosmological argument and various other forms of this. What we are saying is, look, the creator, we are not saying the creator is created. Our concept of creator is uncreated. uncaused.
but we're
And how do we establish this? We can establish this by reason. Your five senses, your brain. That if we have something now,
And evidence.
that's the evidence I'm giving you.
It's not just evidence.
I'm not
That
sure, I'm not
that
sure.
that
If
this.
you're arguing that something has created something, that's what you're arguing.
No, I'm saying
He's saying his particular God
this
created
cosmos is created by something that always exists. Now, how do you then question an entity that always exists and say, who made that entity? Because that entity always exists. Your question becomes meaningless.
So
It's not a meaningful question anymore.
the nothing.
The question has to be meaningful. How do you say, who created the uncreated creator? It doesn't make any sense.
It does. It does.
Because who created the uncreated?
Then it's a regression. It's an infinite
You've
regression.
already made an assumption that's been uncreated.
Yeah.
And I'm saying,
Not by logical proof.
I just gave you the logical proof. You exist, something has to always exist.
In what? That something has
In
to
existence.
always exist in what?
In existence.
In what existence?
So that existence that
In what
always
existence? What
exists
dimensions he has? That he has a space time.
is not nothingness.
Sorry,
okay.
Here's the jump. Here's the jump which you're making. That something which exists. The jump which you've made that has to be a creator.
I'm saying that something now is an entity that exists always. What are the
what?
properties?
So how do we know
In
that's
what?
created?
Let's examine what it is now. If something exists always,
Does that mean it's created?
But he has to
no,
exist
let's
in something, right?
understand.
He has to exist
If
in something.
if something exists always, what are the essential characteristics and properties that something has?
That, okay, first property would be that he has to exist in something. First property would be that he has to exist in something.
So why in something?
Why not? Do you know of an existence out of something?
No, that's the limitation of our universe,
How would you
our
know?
cosmos.
How would you know that he has the
What
he does
we
not have-
establish, the essential characteristics is the existence of this something being. That thing
through this
exists.
rationale, and this rationale tells us that something has to exist in something.
I think you.
What is
same
some?
rationale.
What is okay? Something. When you say
Through
something,
this rationale, you said we said something exists. And
I say
through
something
the
exists
same
always.
rationale, always exists. And through the same rationale, we have to conclude that that something has to exist in something.
Now, when you say in something, let me explain to you what I mean. In somewhere, this place or locus or location is a matter of understanding from what?
Okay, a place.
Philosophy and science.
place.
Do you know what?
A place could be science and space and time. A place could be many different things we don't know. So we can say
Space.
let
Do
me
you know
say
what
something.
space is?
Let me just say something. So if this being is maybe in a parallel universe, and he pretends to be, and he has sufficient technology to create a universe, and probably by chance we've been created, or maybe he designed that. So he's an alien. He could be an alien then.
I think no.
How would you
listen,
undefine
I
it?
know. Hear me. I understand the point. I think what he's trying to say, and what I agree with, is that if there is existence in everything you're saying, what makes it?
What makes it God?
No. What I'm saying is there's no end to it.
There's no end to it.
So if there's no end to their argument of existence, by bringing a creator into the argument, it's assuming an end. By logic.
No, not assuming an end.
And
The creator, we were saying the creator is the originator of our cosmos. If we have something that exists always, there has to be some essential properties of this something. Has to be. It has to have properties. It cannot be given power by something else because there is no something
I'm
else.
not sure you understand my point. I think the point is that if you're arguing that existence always exists, what you're trying to say, then what existed before then? Because there always has to be some level of
Let's understand that step by step.
assuming an infinite end.
Let's understand step by step. Imagine now, this is this something, like this point, right? This something, either there is something prior to it, or there isn't. Yeah?
Are you arguing this is existence?
So let me conclude.
That existence that always exists, either this is always that particular reality of that existence, or there is something prior to this form.
Could be.
Yeah? Two possibilities, isn't it? If you have something prior to this form, then it's ad infinitum, it goes on and on, right?
That's what I'm arguing.
Agree. So let's use that argument. What I'm saying is, whatever that form that is ad infinitum, it has essential properties. Has to have. If it doesn't have essential properties of existence, if it doesn't have essential properties of having energy, then it's not going to produce anything. We won't be here. So it has what we call inherent characteristics.
And what's the argument from then and then to the creator?
From inherent characteristics, I'm saying, if it has energy, the energy will be unbound, unrestricted, unlimited, absolute. If it has existence, this life will be totally unbound, unrestricted. That's
cannot
the
justify
only
it.
logical conclusion that you can arrive.
No. There's plenty others. Let's see. Okay.
Show me otherwise.
I'll show you now. So, a being exists in another universe, in a parallel universe, okay? He has the power. He's just like you and me, common citizen, but he has the technology and he's the power to create another universe. Now they're so advanced. He creates another universe in another dimension.
Okay.
And he declares himself to be a god, right? So he does not have infinite power now. He does not have infinite power now. His power is limited in his universe. He's just a normal being like you and me.
So you missed
understand?
my argument.
No, I didn't miss it. You said that's the only reality. I just gave you another one. Just another one. So
let's take your God.
not even
No,
go
no,
there.
let's take that
Mansur,
God.
let's not even go there. I'm telling
Let's
you.
take that God, right?
I'm telling
That
you.
God did have a beginning.
This is a circular argument.
No.
Let me ask you
I
something.
want to understand the concept of God that you've provided. That God in a parallel universe, did it have a beginning?
Yeah. He was born, but now they've
And
discovered.
it's not God.
And now they've
Simply,
discovered.
it's not God.
And now they've
I think
discovered.
the point is that in order
Now
to
they've
believe in a
discovered-
God, there has to be a jump in belief.
That's not a jump in belief. This is an only rational conclusion.
No,
You
let's
are
say
right.
that God-
There has
Yeah,
to be
but
something
you've not-
always.
you've not
Mansur, the God is
explained
born,
what I'm trying to say.
but now they're like undead now, like the immortals, right? They've discovered the technology of
I want to
immortals,
see
and he tells us
what
to
your
believe that
objections
way.
are on
That's
this.
not an objection, it's a question.
Okay.
The question which I want to ask
Yeah.
is, how is there a jump between the idea of existence from where you're arguing that everything has an existence to then the idea of a creator existing?
Sure.
And that's what I want.
So I said, this existence that always has to exist, either it go ad infinitum or, it's the first cause of everything. Okay? You cannot escape these options.
Okay, say we
So,
assume.
so what?
But from that option, let's say
From
we
that
assume
options- from that
we say
option-
we go for the infinite route.
Yeah.
So if we go with the infinite route, how would you then respond to say the creator?
Okay. So what I'm saying is, if you go in infinite, that means the more you go, the more powerful that thing is.
And this absolute.
As you go back in time, the thing that created or originated the other thing that brought this universe is more powerful, and you go back more powerful. You see, and you come to a point where the more back in time, in crudest understanding, you go there, you come to a being which is absolute in everything, in terms of existence, in knowledge, in power.
So we've argued. No, hear me out. No,
It's a main
hear
point.
me out. We've argued there's an infinite end. Just with your definition of an existence, there's an infinite end. Now, what
Or
you're-
end, you're saying,
Yeah, an
or first cause.
Well, infinite cause and end.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get the answer out of, this is a question, it's not a debate. What I'm trying to ask is that we've assumed that there is an infinite start. Why have you assumed that we go further back and becomes more and more powerful?
No, if there is
by
no
that
end.
definition,
No,
assumes a start.
if there was no start, you're saying. If it goes on like this, do you follow rationally that the more you go back, the more powerful it is? So eventually you're coming to a
Can it not
concept
say
of
constant?
a...
How does it come to a concept of a start? That's what I was
No, you have to come to a concept where there has to be an existent reality which is absolute. Because otherwise, you would not explain any of this limited finite cosmos
so
at all.
far-
So there has to be this
And
concept.
that's the point, and that's
Yeah.
the point I want to make, is
Yeah.
that if there has to be an explanation for that, and we don't know or understand that explanation because the way in which the world we're living is
But
very
we've-
finite, why does there have to be an answer right now for it?
It's not about why does it have to be. There is an answer. So at least we understand that this reality that exists, which
why
brought...
do we now have to provide an answer?
It's not about how we provide. The reality is that existent reality, which we call the Creator God, Allah, has already communicated with us, saying, okay, I am Allah. Before me there was nothing. After me there was nothing. I alone am the majestic, the supreme, the most high. So these concepts, they resonate intellectually with us. Yes, I can understand that such a being can exist, because you cannot have another being before that. There has to be a being like this.
Why it has to be?
I just told you. If you don't have this being,
It has to be. You put him on top. There's so many things that you give.
Okay.
Without justification.
this being sent prophets and messengers to make us confirm in our intellectual speculation, because that's all we were doing, speculating. So when this being sent prophets and messengers and sent guidance with scripture, like the Quran being the final one, this confirms that it is from this being.
let me
So
ask a few
you need to ask us,
so far-
how do you
Let's go about it.
give evidence that the Quran is from this being?
Let's go.
That's what you should be asking.
Let's go about it. I haven't asked you a question yet. To what you are advocating, I haven't asked you a question. So far, it's just me trying to explain.
Yeah.
Now, the whole point. In the beginning, I've lost it. Where was he?
I think we're assuming about existence and the idea of it there being a start.
Okay. The whole point is that we go by a definition of this world that we can answer, which is answerable as you yourself said. Now, to the beginning, you say somebody created it. I say I don't know. Right? This is the main difference. You say you are for sure.
Are you willing to learn? Know the answer.
You see this?
I'm willing to learn. But are you willing to know the answer?
No. Here,
Assuming we have the answer.
no, you cannot see something over here.
You can't assume there isn't. If you assume there isn't, then there's no question.
You see, my point over here is I do not know. This means inherently that I'm willing to learn. I do not know, so I'm willing to learn. What you're doing
It
over
doesn't
here.
follow, but yes, I follow you then.
What does it mean? I do not know.
No, there are many people who don't know and they're not willing to learn.
No, that's-
they're stubborn people. But you're not one of them.
Admitting that, you see, one has to admit first that they do not know. Then that is the only way they can
Do you
learn.
care to know?
Sir, this is the...
You do.
Sir, this
But
is
there are
the reason.
people, I'm just saying, look,
saying it's people.
there are people who don't care to know.
That is fine.
So,
that is
let's
fine.
get
so,
past that.
so let's go past and say fine.
Okay,
So you want to
now-
know.
So
How would you know?
My position over here would be that I do not know. Right?
Okay.
It opens me a world of possibilities.
Okay.
One could be true.
Sure.
One could
So
be
now,
true, right? Now your point
let's
over
examine now how can
here.
know.
No.
That's the crucial
Let
point.
me say something.
So there you go. This
No,
is
Mansur,
it's important.
Mansur, let me say something.
How do we know?
You are saying that you know something.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm saying I do not know something.
Okay.
Now I can learn because I'm saying I do not know it, so I can learn. But you cannot learn.
We said I cannot learn.
How would you learn? Because you know it already. You said you know how universe was
that
made.
you're speaking in a very cryptic way. If I knew everything,
No,
then
but
I
you-
have nothing to learn.
Do you know how universe
But do
was
I know everything? I don't.
Do you know who made the universe?
Yes.
You know it. Yeah?
I do.
So
Would you be
for
open
me,
to other suggestions?
no, exactly.
Just
now I can
out-
learn and you cannot. Because if
You
say-
can put forward
say-
your arguments,
No,
but
and I can
say-
examine
No,
them.
that's not the question. Would you be open?
No, if I'm convinced that I'm not a brain in a jar, you can give me all the other options, or maybe a computer simulation. Remember, I'm using this reverse now on you.
There is two. There's just two positions over here. One is yours, one is mine. I say I do not know. I'm
I
willing
am
to learn.
saying
you already
there are
know the
other
first part.
possibilities, and we can examine them. But I'm convinced of the possibilities that I have put forward. So I'm saying this Quran is from God and cannot be from other than God. Other than God. So I can give you explanations and reasons and evidence why this is from God, and you can reason with me saying, okay, not convincing, or otherwise. So if you can establish that this book is from God with certainty,
Let's
then
go
you
about
know.
it.